Jason Dilts, welcome to In The Naad.
Thank you. It is a true honor to be here.
Well, I bet it is because you are a dear friend and an astrologer. And what's interesting and very surprising is that you are my first astrologer on the show.
Oh, that is an honor to be on this show.
Do you know, it's funny because I always hold back on astrology because I'm intimidated by it. And I really don't know as much about it as I should, despite our Guru Jagat being such a fanatic. I just never really understood it. I think it was too academic, too much memory, and I guess my brain is fried from all my partying as a youngster. I can't retain it.
It's a language, and it's a language that you have to learn how to speak, but my goal is to speak it in a way that anybody can understand it. You don't have to know anything about astrology to be able to understand how it applies to your life. That's the philosophy that I take with it. So the conversation we can have today, I want it to be that. I want it to be a conversation that anybody listening to can get something from, whether they're already an astrologer or whether they know nothing about it other than they just want to know more about themselves and really what they're here to do, because ultimately that's what astrology is.
A map to one of oneself?
It is. So I look at it this way. You are born. You choose the life that you're living. Before you get here, you're on the astral plane and you've had experiences, you've had karma, and you're looking at your life and that you're about to live and you're saying, okay, I'm going to go back down there and I'm going to live again. What am I going to experience? What do I want to do? How do I want to do it? You plot it out. The plot is your birth chart. So you're born, you take an incarnation, you start to live. If you understand your birth chart, you understand what you're here to do, and you understand how you need to live your life, and you understand the experiences that you're here to have.
Well, then how does one explain the difference between fate and free will inside of a birth chart?
Yeah. Great question. And different astrologers will have different takes on this. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. Evolutionary astrology is all about the soul and how it evolves over lifetime. There is nothing but choice and there is nothing but free will in evolution. Other astrologers are going to tell you that it's more fated, that when the birth chart is cast, it's set, and your life is going to evolve in a certain way. I see life as being nothing but a series of choices, and you decide what you're going to do with the chart that you put in place. We forget to remember. We come down here, we take an incarnation, and we forget all the reasons why. And what we're wanting to do in life is we're wanting to remember why we came here. And there's no end of distractions that get in our way that, keep us from remembering. And that's where choice comes in. That's where free will comes in. You can choose to grow. You can choose to grow in certain ways, or you can choose to ignore that growth. But at any point, no matter how old you are, whether you've chosen to ignore the growth or whether you've leaned into it, you can decide to start growing. And that's the beauty of astrology. You don't miss anything. There's a whole curriculum in place for you. You just got to decide to start doing it.
Explain that curriculum to me in terms of how is it a map? How does it help you navigate your life astrology? In terms of, does it tell you when to make a left turn or a right turn in one's life? I'm not really understanding.
Yeah. So there's the birth chart, which is when you were born, the planets, the stars, the asteroids, all that, they were in a certain place. And then they keep moving. And then that's another chart. That's what we call a transit. So that transit chart has what I call time-coded evolution interwoven into it. And that's when at certain points in your life, certain things are going to come up. And you can turn left or you can turn right. And those things are coming up so that you can decide in what way you want to take that direction. That's the time code.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. So what do you see as the purpose of astrology in this current moment? Is that it, helping people navigate the fluctuations in their lives?
On a very basic level, yes, but we're not in a basic moment. We're in a very dynamic moment, and we're at a very historic time. So what I think is really important and really critical, and why I think astrology is so important, why I became an astrologer, is we have the privilege of being alive as the ages turn. We were born, you and I, in the age of Pisces. And most people watching and listening to this podcast were born in the age of Pisces. We are now in the very, very early stages of the age of Aquarius. When one age ends, all of the systems and the structures and the thoughts and the ideologies and the everything that age meant and was gets torn down. And then when a new age dawns, slowly new things have to begin being built. We're in the middle of the transition right now, and we are in the thick of it, and it is an ugly time for many people, but I think it's an exciting time, because what I'm excited about is we have to build all the new stuff on top of all the old stuff that's getting torn down, and that's why it's important to understand your astrology, because you have a mission, you have a destiny. I have a mission, I have a destiny. So does everybody listening and watching this podcast. If you understand your mission and your destiny, you understand why you're alive, why you incarnated at this time, and why you're here during the shift, why you're here during the turning of the ages.
So let me ask you another question. If I speak to two astrologers and they both give me a reading, why are the readings invariably different?
A lot of it will have to do with the type of astrology you're talking to. What school are they coming from? Are they a Vedic astrologer? Are they, like me, an evolutionary astrologer? There's different systems. They're going to be looking at different points and different placements and different aspects as primary importance. In evolutionary astrology, it's all about the evolution of the soul. So when I'm looking at a chart, I'm looking first at where is Pluto, because in astrology, Pluto represents the soul, and it represents the soul to grow in that life. Then I'm looking at the nodes of the moon. The north node, that's the direction you want your soul to move toward. The south node, that's the karma you're coming from, and it's the baseline that you have. When I see those three things, that's going to start to tell me a lot about who you are and what you're intending to do. Other astrologers aren't looking for that. Other astrologers are looking at different things. So that's why you're going to get two different takes on your life. And neither one is necessarily wrong. They're just tapping into different frequencies of what the destiny could be.
So when you say you'd like a soul to move in a certain direction, give me an example of what you mean by that. Make that tangible for me.
Yeah. So let's say that you have your south node in Capricorn. If your Capricorn is all about duty, responsibility, structures, there can be a little bit of emotional blockage because you're so devoted to the duty. That's the foundation you come in with. Somebody with a south node in Capricorn, they're going to be able to get stuff done. They're going to be a hard worker, but they might not allow themselves to feel. They might not allow themselves to have emotional connections. The north node, if you have your south node in Capricorn, your north node is going to be in Cancer. That's the calling of your life. So what your intention evolutionary to do is to lean in to the cancering themes of feeling, of allowing yourself to feel safe in feeling and being nurtured. And depending on the house that is falling in, the house is the area of your life that you're going to experience that. And then depending on what other planets are around the nodes, if you have any, that's going to dictate exactly how that plays out in your life.
So would you work with your clients in navigating that?
Yes.
Or do you just read it and say, adios, you're on your own, folks?
No, I like to provide a support system. What I do when I do a reading with somebody is I take time and I actually write out the birth chart. I look at Pluto, I look at the nodes, I look at all the different planets, aspects, houses. I give them a written roadmap for themselves. But then we sit down and we talk. If you're in LA, we can get together and have matcha or coffee. If you're not in LA, we can have a Zoom. And that's when we really get into what exactly is it that you need. It's not just asking me questions. It's not just me, reading your chart. I really want to know how I can help you, because I have tools that can help you. I'm not just an astrologer. Like you, I'm a Kundalini yogi, and I know these teachings. I know this technology, and this is a technology that works with planetary energy. There's nothing in the cosmos that isn't on the human body. Yogi Bhajan understood this. Our teacher, Guru Jagat, understood this. So we have Kriyas that work with all of the planetary energies. And depending on where you're at, the type of growth that I think your soul is intending to do, I can give you Kriyas, mantras, etc. to work with, and that can help jump you forward.
And do you believe that the mudras correlate directly with the planets and
They do. Yeah, many of them do. On our hand, we have Jupiter, we have the sun, we have Saturn, and then we have the Mercury finger as well. So, we're dealing with four major bodies right there. We have a Venus line, we have Mars energy in our bodies, and then we have mantras that tap into all of the outer planets as well, and meditations that tap into them.
What would you say to skeptics that are out there? And there's so many.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who said, I think it's fun, it's exciting, but I really don't believe in it. I think it's a fun pastime, but I don't really believe in it. What would you say to them to really hit to the core where they change their belief system?
Yeah.
Like, I like to say, in this universe, you're one dot right there.
Yeah.
Right? You're that only dot. You're the only one who occupies that time and space.
Yeah.
And that sort of gets them a little bit, but I'm not sophisticated enough in the vernacular to really get any deeper than that. What would you say?
There's two things I'll say, and the first is on the personal level. You have to observe and correlate, and that's a phrase that I take from my teacher, Tashi Powers, who's a great evolutionary astrologer.
Fantastic.
Look at your life, look at what you're being told about what your astrology means and what the transits mean, and just observe what's happening and see if there's something relevant there for you. I'm pretty sure you'll find out that there is. And then keep an open mind. And it requires you to drop some of the pretenses. You know, we're so conditioned. We live in this world where we're told that astrology is woo-woo, it's pseudoscience, it isn't real, and that's the mild take on it. We used to stone people or burn people at the stake for doing things like this. And that's the second thing. There's a reason why that's the case. Because I see astrology as a roadmap. It's your roadmap. It's your divine plot so that you can be as powerful and penetrate with your presence as forcefully as possible. It's not an accident that we don't want people to do that. So we make something taboo, or we make something silly, or we make something that a serious person wouldn't want to mess around with so that we take your power away. Because if you think that astrology is woo-woo, if you think it isn't serious, you want to be taken seriously, you won't mess with it, you're going to miss a little bit of what your life is all about, and maybe all of what your life is all about. There's an agenda behind this.
When you say you might miss all of what your life is about, so you think those people or people like me, I would insist, that really don't have a lot of knowledge, you think that a big piece of our puzzle is missing?
No, I don't mean it like that, because see, you're tapped in other ways. You might not be tapped in on astrology. I know that you're a deep yogi. You don't have to know astrology to be living your destiny, but you have to be on some kind of growth path. You have an understanding of what your destiny is, but a lot of people do not. A lot of people aren't lucky like us. They don't have the practices that we have. They don't live in places that have this kind of technology, and they're just lost.
So are we lucky because our past was so inflicted with pain that it brought us to this place?
I say yes. I say yes, and I'm thankful for all the pain that I encountered. And I can look at my birth chart and I can see where I plotted that out and how at certain points it activated in certain ways. So I'm grateful for it. And one of the beauties of astrology is that so many clients that come to me, they've lived lives of pain, and they're in a painful situation maybe at the moment. And when they understand that this is part of something bigger and actually something that they put into motion, it helps get them through the day and helps get them out of the circumstance. And that's one reason why I think astrology is really important.
I do too. It helps you navigate pain, and pain is the key to transformation.
It is the only way through transformation. It really is.
So let's get down and dirty in terms of what's going on the planet now.
Yeah.
What should people be looking out for? What are some dates that we should be keyed into? Anything you think is really significant and could really change people's lives, or at least sort of help them become in tune with what's going on. So a start to a belief system that they maybe not had before this conversation.
Yeah, I want to talk about this on two levels. I want to talk about this. First, we'll talk about it on the macro level, what's going on planet, it's kind of like planet-wise right now with transits. But then I want to talk about time-coded evolution and what that means for you as an individual.
So feel free, take the mic.
All right.
Roll out whatever you got to tell us, and we're just here to listen and learn.
So as I said earlier, we are in the thick of the transition between the age of Pisces and the age of Aquarius. And the outer planet transits especially are showing us what that means. What does it mean, first of all? Well, the age of Pisces, that was the age where it was all about power over. It was domination, submission. It was, there is a divine source, but that divine source is outside of you. Now we're moving into the age of Aquarius, and we're understanding that God and me and God, we are one. The divinity is within you. And it's not a game of power over anymore. It's a game of equality. It's you and me are equal, and we're exactly the same. And you're a reflection of me, and I'm a reflection of you. That's the high vibration of it. Where things can get off the rails is in the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is technology. Aquarius is innovation. Don't we have a lot of technology around us? We're doing a podcast right now. That's an Aquarian innovation. Just like religion, in the way that religion became a dominator, submissive sort of force, and while it meant to do good things, it actually ended up doing a lot of harm. That became the shadow of the age of Pisces. Technocracy has the potential to become the shadow of the age of Aquarius if we are not important. So, or if we are not vigilant.
Correct.
About what is going on
Absolutely.
right now. Technocracy can very much overthrow all of the good possibilities that the age of Aquarius promises to bring. And what the promise is it will live in more of a unity consciousness state, that will live from the heart, and that will be rebuilding communities that will be based around a common understanding that you're me and I'm you, and that we're interdependent in supporting each other. Now, what's happening planetarily right now to help us with this is the planet Pluto, which is change and transformation, that has recently gone into the sign of Aquarius. That happened shortly after the election last year. It was, I think it was November 17th or 18th. Pluto made a little, it went into Aquarius and then it left and then it finally settled into Aquarius. So for 20 years, we're going to have a deep transformation in all the Aquarian themes around.
So is the cusp 20 years? Is that what you're saying?
Pluto spends, that's a very good question. So Pluto is a generational planet. It spends about 20 years in every sign that it transits through. And because some signs, because of Pluto's orbit and because of the way that the signs are positioned in the solar system, sometimes it spends less than 20 years, sometimes it spends a little bit more. This particular transit, we know it'll be there from 2024 roughly until about 2044. So it is about 20 years. Yeah. And there's a whole generation that's going to be born during this time. There'll be the Pluto Aquarius generation. I've done videos talking about the different generations before. The Pluto Leo generation, those are basically the baby boomers. I'm Pluto Libra, that's kind of like late millennials. The Pluto Scorpio, that's the millennials. So this is a new generation. And this is a generation that's going to really help us harmonize our relationship with technology at the highest vibration, because we stand at a point where we could either go the transhumanist way and we can merge ourselves with the machine, or we can understand that there is something radically amazing about being human, and we're going to use technology to benefit our humanity, and we're not going to become the victims of technology. We're not going to allow technology to rule over us. That's going to be the challenge of Pluto in Aquarius. And that's why I think these kinds of practices that we do are so important, because they drop us into our humanity.
They do, and into our humility.
Yeah, very much into our humility.
I mean, it's when you hear it, it's I'm taking in a lot.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. I do believe it. I'm drawn to it, and I also want to believe in it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where we're trying to find the answers to the unknown, and it helps us piece it together.
It does. And that's how I got into astrology, actually. When COVID happened, there was a lot of unknown and there was a lot of fear that I watched going on around me. And I wasn't interested in being in fear. I was interested in understanding what was happening. And we were very fortunate to be part of a community where there were conversations that were happening about what was really going on that weren't happening anywhere else. One of those conversations was astrology. And it was that time that I started to not just listen to, what Tashi would say on Rama TV, but do that, and then also go read evolutionary astrology books and do rabbit hole deep dive YouTube watching and take notes. And then that's when I really started to learn astrology. And I started to find answers about the larger things that were going on. And I started to understand myself a lot more deep. And then I started to understand how I could better contort myself and live the life that I want to live.
How much knowledge does one have to have a general understanding of astrology?
So I started studying in 2020. I didn't get super dedicated, honestly, until about 2023. It's now the end of 2025, and we're having this conversation. So I think, give yourself a few months and you can learn some of the basics. But if you want to go really, really deep, then you're going to be able to understand a whole lot more. But, just understanding the basics of what the signs are and what the planets are and what the houses are, you can learn that pretty quickly.
But it is an academic pursuit. There's no question.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's also something you should just take at your own pace and at the pace that feels right for you, and learn what feels right for you. Because maybe you're really interested in what I'm talking about Pluto, and you don't care anything about Venus and Mars or Mercury right now. You just want to know about deep transformation and what that means for you. Then go read Jeffrey Wolf Green's Pluto book. That was actually the first book that I read. It was way over my head and way advanced, and I read it 3 times before I totally got it. But I wanted to deeply transform my life, and so I read that book.
You know, what's interesting is if you're like me and you've tried out all these different modalities and teachings, if you go to Kabbalah or if you go to Rosicrucian church, I mean, they seem to be based in astrology.
They are. Yeah.
Astrology and geometry.
Astrology and geometry.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Do those two have a strong correlation?
They do, and they also have a strong correlation to Kundalini Yoga, so I'm glad that you brought this up. So when you're looking at a birth chart, you're not, or a transit chart, you're not just looking at where is Pluto and where is Mercury and all of the other planets. You're looking at aspects that they make. And what are aspects? Well, aspects are basically geometry. They make squares, they make trines, they make quincunxes, they make geometric shapes to each other. And depending on what those aspects are, you're either going to have a difficult time with something or you're going to have a harmonious and easy time with something.
You're not talking about like sacred geometry type shapes.
I am, yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. Now, the sacred geometry, as we're talking about sacred geometry as an esoteric science, doesn't exactly correlate with astrology.
Right.
But when you look at a birth chart, there is a geometric configuration to that. When you look at a birth chart and you see the way that all of the lines are drawn with the aspects, you start to see a pattern. There's always a finger of God in a chart, and you can always see energy pointing one place. Like when I look at a birth chart and I have all of the aspects that are displayed visually for me, I can always see where the finger of God is pointing. And then that tells me like, okay, this is what this individual decided they really wanted to come here and work on.
Wow. I mean, that is incredible.
This is where it gets...
Because that's like, that is the Holy Spirit.
It is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
This is why you didn't do this alone. You were on the astral plane with Source, and you decided together what you wanted to come here and do. And then you plotted it out and you came here, and it's available for you to see.
Okay, tell us more.
So
get us really excited about
Kundalini Yoga.
this.
Here, I'll tell you what's really exciting about this.
Okay.
So in astrology, we have squares and we have triangles. We have other things too. Squares are considered hard aspects, challenges to be overcome, not challenges to be defeated by. And then triangles are harmonious aspects. We have this wonderful technology of Kundalini Yoga that Yogi Bhajan, the person who brought Kundalini Yoga to the West, called the yoga of angles and triangles. Because what do? In Kundalini Yoga, we are often contorting our body into triangular shapes, and then we're often putting our arms up at angular degrees.
And
right?
very precise. It's also a yoga of precision.
Yes, and there's a reason why. And astrology actually has a lot to do with it, and Yogi Bhajan talked about this.
Tell us.
So when you have a square in your chart. Let's say that you have Pluto square Mercury. Mercury is communication. Pluto is transformation. Depending on the houses that falls in, you're going to have a difficulty expressing yourself, and you're going to have to deeply transform and learn how to communicate. So let's say that you do a meditation where your arms are up in the air for 60 degrees, or let's say even better, you go to white tantric yoga where there's a lot of transformation. There is a diagonal force that gets called in when you're doing Kundalini Yoga, especially when you have your arms up or where you're contorted in a certain way. In white tantric yoga, especially, the whole room is designed so that the diagonal force comes in. When the diagonal force comes in, it cuts that square in half. What happens when you have a square that's cut in half? Well, you have two triangles. So instead of one challenge, you have two friends that are helping you. That's where astrology and Kundalini Yoga come together.
I love that. See, that turns me on.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but that's the kind of esoteric stuff that turns me on.
That turned me on too.
Because I believe it, because it's science combined with the esoteric.
I had a lot of squares in my chart. And then when I understood, I have Saturn square Venus. Venus is love. Saturn is constriction. Wherever Saturn squares something, you're going to have a difficulty. Well, I've had difficulty in that area. But let me tell you, this year, I did white tantric 6 times already, and I'm going to do it 3 more times at winter solstice. I've never had more attention in the love area than I've had this year. And it's because For real. And it's because I turned the squares into triangles. And now guys are coming to me all the time. And it's amazing.
Okay, you need to teach me that trick. On another level, let me ask you, so when you read your chart before versus after, do you actually see the squares converted into triangles or no? Your chart remains the same. You just know that you've done the work.
Your birth chart is set for the entirety of the incarnation. So the challenges that are there are there. Now, that's when you were born. what you do with your incarnation, that defines the growth that you have and sets the stage for the next incarnation.
So this requires an enormous amount of, what was the word I was just going to think? I'm sorry, I'm spacing, of consciousness in terms of knowing what you've done and what you've navigated, where you've been and where you've come to.
And knowing what's coming, and that's what I'd like to talk about next, which is time-coded evolution, understanding your chart and understanding the things that are going to be going on at certain points in your life so that you can do what you just said, be able to rock it, basically.
Okay, let's go through that.
So time exists as a concept for one very specific reason, and it's evolution. The whole reason that we have time on the planet is that at a certain point, the planet must evolve. This is why we've had evolution. This is why, at one point we had dinosaurs, and at one point, we had ice all over, and at one point we had more tropical climates.
Right, 6 incarnations.
How many? Yeah, exactly. Like the Earth has gone through many incarnations. That's all part of a time-coded evolutionary cycle. None of it's good, none of it's bad. That's just time-coded.
It's time-coded?
Time-coded.
Okay.
At a certain point in time, things had to evolve. The dinosaurs had to be extinct. The iteration of humanity that we are right now had to rise.
Right. Each time the next is more evolved.
And the age of Aquarius is a larger scale time-coded evolution. The ending of the Kali Yuga is part of time-coded evolution. The ending of the Mayan calendar is time-coded evolution. These are things that listeners of this podcast are going to have heard about.
Of course.
Now, that's all on the societal level, on the planetary level, on the macro level. More important is to understand your own time-coded evolution, because this is happening for every incarnation that you have as well. There are 3 major time-coded evolutionary events that you have in your life, and one of them repeats every 29, 30 years. The first one, which you've probably heard of, is Saturn Return.
Of course.
Yeah, I think most...
That's like the whole pop culture thing
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. Saturn Return is very pop culture. So Saturn Return, Saturn takes about 29 years to go around the sun. So when it returns to the point that you were born, you have what's called a Saturn return. What that means is the very structure and the very foundation and all of the guardrails that you set for your life gets called into question. Your higher self says, hey, we plotted this life out. We decided we were going to do certain things. Are you doing them? How do you feel about what you're doing? Well, let's be honest. Most of us, we're living a life by the time we get to 29, 30. But we're having fun in our 20s, and we're drinking, and we're experimenting, and, the structure of what we came to put together maybe has some of the guardrails in place, but not all of it. So a lot of times, life is a hot mess when you have Saturn return. You'll suddenly end a relationship. You'll get fired from your job, or you'll leave your job. You'll move to another city. You'll be doing something one day, and then you'll just completely have no interest in it the next. And it's all because your higher self checked in and said, hey, this isn't what we came here to do. Stuff has got to change. So Saturn return can be a difficult period if you're not aware of this. But if you're aware that you put a certain expectation on your evolutionary growth, and that you decided you wanted to have a certain kind of life and structure your life in a certain way, then instead of Saturn return being a hot mess, if you start really looking at your life around, 24, 25, and asking yourself, hey, is what I'm doing, is the career path that I'm on, is the relationship path that I'm on in alignment with who I actually want to be, then Saturn return can actually be a beautiful time. It doesn't have to be a hot mess.
Well, even a hot mess is transformational.
It is. And
right?
actually,
so
that's
there's nothing really wrong with a hot mess.
There's nothing wrong with any of it. Have a hot mess. Mine was a total hot mess. I was in politics when I had my Saturn return, believe it or not. I've got long hair. I'm wearing crystals. I was running for office. And then one day, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know why, but this doesn't resonate with me. The political system doesn't resonate with me. So I lived in Wichita, Kansas. I'd never heard of Saturn return, but I just knew I had to do something else in my life. So I abruptly quit the race for city council that I was that I was running, and I dropped out. And I just ambled around for a couple of years, figuring out what was going on. And eventually I stumbled into the practice of Kundalini yoga. And here we are today talking astrology.
It's interesting how becoming a mess, or of that breakdown of one's neurological system, right? All that pain that embodies us at one point really ends up being our teacher or our guide. Yeah. And one thing that I'm keenly aware of now is that when I'm going through a painful moment, or when things are terribly uncomfortable in my life, I am able to look at it as a learning experience and try in the moment to figure out what the transformation is going to be, which is something several years ago I never would have been able to do. But that's a real gift. And knowing these timelines is also a gift, and it's valuable because you realize that the shift is more than an emotion, a bad day at work or a breakup. There's something bigger. There's something greater going on.
And what you just said, that's the key to it. Understanding that this is a gift. I always say it's all happening for you, not to you.
Right.
And Saturn return, if you're, if you're 29, 30 right now and your life feels like it's a hot mess, understand that this is happening for you, and understand that what feels like a mess today, you're going to look back and you're going to see it was actually the greatest gift.
So will Saturn return to you once again at like 60?
It will. That's why I said there's three major ones, and I'm going to talk about the other two in a minute.
Okay,
but
great.
Every Saturn returns every 29 or 30 years. So you have a second Saturn return at around age 58 to 60, and it's highly individual depending on your chart. Because when you're born, planets are moving forward or retrograding, your Saturn return might be very different from somebody else that's just a few months younger or older than you. So it's highly individual for the
I would
exact
imagine it is not
date.
specific.
But it basically is around 58 to
Right.
60. And then if you live longer, which we are living longer, you're going to have another Saturn return when you're in your late 80s or around age 90. And it's the same thing. Your Saturn return when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, that's different because you've lived a decent part of your life by that point. And then the idea at that time is like, okay, I've lived most of the structure. What about that served me? And what about that do I still need to do some work on so that for the next part of my life,
it's probably more about peace and harmony.
it is because you've
as
done the
opposed
hustle.
to getting it together. Right.
Yeah.
You've done the hustle.
You probably have
and you also don't have as much free energy inside.
No.
So free energy is more directed at, a pursuit
totally.
or a dream. At this point, at 59, 60, I think one is most likely looking for peace, for harmony, for a way to sort of glide through and enjoy the later part of your life.
That's really key because the first Saturn return is kind of like, what am I wanting to give to the world? Do I want to have the marriage? Do I want to have the kids? What do I want to do with the career? How do I want to penetrate? A lot of decision making. So by the second one, you've made most of those decisions. And it's what
hopefully you've decided if you're going to have a kid or not.
Although we live in a very interesting timeline. Yes. But, it's more about, okay, how can I enjoy the rest of my life?
Correct.
How can I have harmony in the rest of my life? And what didn't I give myself? What structures didn't I allow myself to have before that now need to be rescaffolded?
I heard a very interesting quote, and I'm paraphrasing as I usually do recently. And it was like, early on in your life, you think about, what do I want to do with my life, right? And as you get older, you begin to think, what do I want to think about as I get older? Like, what do I want occupying my mind, taking space in my life? And I think that's beautiful, and I think it's accurate.
Yeah.
Because gossip and bullshit, who has time for it?
Right. And that's very second Saturn return. And as you're working your way.
That's very second Saturn.
As you're working your way from your first Saturn return into Uranus opposition, which we're going to talk about through the Chiron return at age 50, it's kind of after that Chiron return at age 50 that you start to ask yourself that very question. Because then your second Saturn return is coming 8, 9, 10 years later. And the more you're conscientious of that, the more graceful that's going to be and the better time you're going to have.
Okay, so what after Saturn return at 30, what are we looking at?
We're looking at Uranus opposition, and you're looking at it right now because I'm going through it. And I think that this needs to become just as popular, if not more popular, than the Saturn return because it's very, very critical. So it happens.
You have to make it so then.
We will. This is the beginning of it. I'm excited about it. This happens around the age of 42. Uranus takes about 84 years to circle around the sun. When the transiting Uranus is exactly opposite the natal Uranus, and this is about 42 years, we have what's called Uranus opposition. Most people know about this as a midlife crisis, but we are in the age of Aquarius. We do not have time for a crisis because so much has to happen on the planet. So rather than a crisis, what you can do during Uranus opposition, if you're really working with the energy, is you can have a complete and total liberation from every conditioning that has held you back. Uranus is the planet of freedom. Uranus is freedom from the known, as we say in evolutionary astrology. Uranus wants to liberate you from whatever has held you back. See, when you were born, as you've gone through your life, you might feel like you're in a bit of a prison cell in certain areas, that you're held captive, that you just can't break free from
This
something.
is your breakout.
The whole time, the key has been around your neck. And at Uranus opposition, you realize, here's the key. I can just open the door and walk out, and I can liberate myself.
Yeah, how do you get people to that point without understanding this, right? They have to know that there is a time frame and that they have to seize that moment.
Yeah. This is what's very interesting about Uranus opposition. I'll never forget when I heard about this. I was on a hike at Runyon Canyon listening to Barbara Hand Clow, who's someone you may have, many In The Naad listeners will know who she is. She's one of the most important cosmologists of our time. Guru Jagat had her on her reality riffing podcast. I was listening.
She's still with us?
She is still with us, and she is still doing things. She's still doing interviews. She just did 2 interviews this past month that are excellent. I was listening to an interview she had taped years before, and it wasn't even about Uranus opposition, but as an aside, she mentioned Uranus opposition and briefly explained what it was, and I froze in my tracks because my higher self said, Jason, learn this, understand this, because this will be the thing that either defeats you or that liberates you. And if you liberate yourself, you will liberate others by understanding this teaching.
So what's the key to the teaching?
Kundalini yoga. And I'll tell you why.
All roads lead back to Kundalini.
They do, but what's very interesting about this, Barbara Hand Clow is not a student of Kundalini yoga,
no.
But she wrote a book long before she'd ever met Guru Jagat. I think the book came out in 2011 called Astrology and the Raising of the Kundalini, and it's all about Uranus opposition. Because what happens at Uranus opposition is there's dormant energy inside us that has been unexpressed, and it wants to be expressed. That's the thing that wants to be liberated. This energy typically coils at the base of your spine. And during Uranus opposition, you want to consciously move that energy through the body. Well, how do you do that?
Kundalini yoga.
Exactly. This can play out a little bit differently depending on your own astrology, because that's going to tell you the areas of your life. And then also depending on whether you're male or female, because what I've noticed is with men, a lot of the energy gets stuck in their sacral chakra. That's the genitals. Men are obsessed with sex. So what we want to do during Uranus opposition is you want to move that energy from the sacral chakra up to the heart, and you want to have an experience of higher love. That's really the key for men. Not that women may not also have that same issue, but it just tends to be more pervasive with men. Where women tend to have the issue is that the energy gets blocked in the solar plexus. That's your command center. That's your power. Because women have had the experience in this timeline of a lot of their power being challenged or taken away or being harder to express. And then they don't express themselves. So the energy has to be moved from the power center up to the throat chakra so that you can start speaking your truth.
Now, if they are practitioners already, will they still come up on the same challenges?
Things will come up for review. If you are consciously aware of this, you will face challenges and you'll quickly move through them, because that's been my experience. What I did, I was very consciously aware of what this period was going to be like for me. And, I resisted leaning into my destiny for the longest time. I would go to those classes. You were in there. I hid in the back of the room and I didn't let anybody see me because I was just going through my own stuff.
Like me.
Yeah. Then I understood Uranus opposition and I understood my chart and I understood, I actually have to start talking about this and start teaching this and actually have to start being a voice about these teachings. So I had a little bit of a health scare in 2023 that turned out to be nothing, but that was enough to wake me up to realize, I either will be defeated or I will be liberated.
What's beautiful is that you knew that it was a turning point.
Yeah. So about this time last year, I started going on Instagram Live and talking, and then I started creating content, and it just kind of snowballed up until now. But that was me putting my penetration into time and space, talking about this, and my life has just grown immensely. What I really started to do, though, was I made a conscious point of doing in-person Kundalini yoga classes as much as I could. So right now, I am going to Babaji just about every day.
I'm there 3 days a week.
Yeah. I didn't go today because I wanted to be ready for this, and it felt so weird not to be there. But you want to be doing Kundalini yoga, and if Kundalini yoga doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. Do something that moves energy through your body, though. There's other practices that you can do.
I understand, and I try and tell that to people, but I can't really think of what they are because I've done them all too. So that's the one that resonates. But You know, as long as you're moving the energy
Yeah.
on some level, I think
Yeah.
any yogic practice is great. Ashtanga is fantastic for that.
It is. Yeah. What you want to be watching for, though, and again, your Uranus opposition dates are going to be very specific to you. If you do a reading with me, I can tell you exactly when they're going to be. Because most people that listen to this podcast are meditators, they're probably going to start to feel the theme of their Uranus opposition long before it actually hits that exact point. And what you want to be watching out for is what I call the lightning bolt. So Uranus is a planet of electricity. The planet Uranus itself is basically just a big gas cloud in the cosmos with a bunch of electrical storms that are going on. Something will happen in your life that will jolt you. That could be a health scare. That could be the loss of a job. That could be a person. In my case, there was a person that came into my life that jolted me, that changed me, and that reminded me of who I am, and that reminded me that my voice has value, and that what I understand needs to be told and needs to be voiced. And that put me on a trajectory to, frankly, have the best year of my life ever. And it's because I leaned into doing all of the hard work. Like I said, it'll be 9 white tantrics by the end of this year, and I've gone to class almost every day this year. Plus, I have a daily practice at home. And if you do some of those things, you're going to have a good time during Uranus opposition. You will have challenges. I've had many challenges, but you're going to see that as all happening for you, not to you, and you're going to see the gold in all of them. And also, you move through those challenges real quickly.
It's really interesting that you're saying this because at 41, I'd say between 40 and 42, so somewhere in 41 that year, I had 2 Kundalini awakenings. They were heavy duty.
Okay, there you go.
They were heavy duty.
Yeah.
They were both after Tej classes.
Okay.
And because I was a student of the practice, I knew what was happening to me. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's easy to navigate through.
No,
it's intense. Yeah. But I knew what was happening. And they were both life-changing moments.
Yeah.
And now that I'm thinking back, there's a good chance that it was
Uranus opposition.
It was my Uranus opposition.
Now, I could look at your chart and I could tell you exactly where Uranus was. Even if it wasn't exactly on the opposition point, it was close enough based on what you're telling me and based on the age that happened, that yes, that is the energy of Uranus opposition for sure.
Very interesting. So that's a very exciting one.
Yeah.
So that would be every 42 years.
Every 42 years.
40 to 42
Well,
years.
so the opposition only happens really once in a lifetime.
Oh,
because
I see.
what happens, if you make it to 84, you're going to have a Uranus return, which is a whole other energy. At the opposition, things are coming up to challenge you, and then you're having to move through them. When we have a return, it's more about the integration. Now, at 84, you've lived probably most of your life by that point. So you're going to be kind of probably more reflecting and reviewing on how much change did you do and how much liberation did you allow
That's
for
a past
yourself.
life. That is a life review.
It's a life review, and then you're probably planning for the next
And
life.
then what's the next?
Chiron return.
Okay.
Chiron is an asteroid. It's not a planet. It's between the planet of Jupiter and Saturn in the cosmos. And it takes about 50 years to orbit the sun. So around the age of 50, we have the Chiron return. Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer. Really, though, and you're starting to hear more astrologers talk about it this way, it's the shamanic healer. It's how you take your deepest wound and you heal it, and then from that healing, you heal others. And that's exactly what happens ideally at Chiron return. Your wound becomes your wisdom because you've taken the time specifically between the Uranus opposition and the Chiron return to understand what is your deepest, darkest wound, what area of your life has been the hardest, most emotionally intense for you. And then you start to heal it. And then in the healing of it, you become somebody that can help other people cross the bridge to heal themselves. And Chiron return at age 50, if you've done the work, you're going to have an amazing time. The wound could also resurface around then, and if and when it does, it's resurfacing for you to confront it and finally heal it. And again, when you do, you're going to be able to heal others, not just yourself.
Probably easier the second time around as well.
Much easier.
Because you know how to navigate it.
Much easier, yeah.
Wow. It's amazing how these incidents these moments are times for the broken to really shift.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the wounded healer.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a powerful thing because I feel like I'm that person. I feel like that was a lifetime in the making. Well, I mean, we both are to some degree. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here.
We wouldn't be sitting here. And it's interesting to hear you say that, because I don't see a wounded person when I see you. I see a powerful person. I see a warrior. And I see somebody who's not afraid to say the truth and not afraid to have multiple perspectives in front of her. And that takes some real growth.
Yes. And I do have multiple perspectives. And thank you very much. That is a huge compliment. I'm really honored to have heard you say that. It's very emotional.
Well, you've done the work, and this is people should look and see what it looks like when you do the work, because you too can have this kind of a life.
You can't imagine how broken I was and how fulfilled I am now. And it's clear that you've gone through the same thing.
Same. And some of the brokenness, it's interesting. A lot of it came up for me this week, and it's because I do so much work on myself. The instant that the brokenness came up, it was almost like it was healed instantly, and then new things started to come to me in really, really beautiful ways after that. That's time-coded evolution. When you put it into motion, you allow your soul to evolve, and you just surrender to the divine plot that you and God put in place.
Do you think most people are capable of grasping astrology to some degree?
I do. And in fact, what I think, instead of some of the nonsense that we teach in school, we ought to be teaching the basics of astrology in school, because we ought to be teaching people to empower themselves. But I'm not going to wait for that to happen. You can be your own teacher. I think anybody has the capability to grasp the very basics of it, at least enough to know about yourself.
Maybe you should contact the Jordan Peterson Academy.
I love that. I love that idea.
I haven't seen anything on astrological teachings yet.
I love this. See, and the other thing is, parents, when your kid is born, you should find an astrologer and get your birth chart read for your kids so that you know how to parent them. Because you always hear people say, oh, the kids, they don't come with instruction manuals. In fact, they do, and it's called their birth chart.
That's really smart.
And that's something I can help with. I mean, if you have a kid and you want to understand more about them and how to parent them, I am not a parenting expert, but I can tell you what the kid's intention in life is, and then you can figure out how to parent.
I have one I would love to do that with.
Okay.
And look at Haley over there laughing, because she knows exactly which kid I'm thinking of. And he would understand this too. He's absolutely brilliant. And,
I love that.
And in touch. And you've met him.
I have. Yeah, he's been in many classes with me, actually. Oh, that'd be special.
I mean, I've got a 14-year-old who's been able to drop into a 45-minute meditation at 7.
Well, see,
even our teachers' kids can't do that. They're all in there on their devices, and which is so shocking to me. Really, it's actually terrifying.
It is.
It's just terrifying.
I know.
But so I would love to do that with Ren, and I think he'd be so down.
Oh, I'd love to do that. Yeah.
So in closing, what would you say to everybody? And not only that, how do our listeners reach you? Can you give us your Instagram?
Yeah.
Do you want to give it? Whatever you want to give, whatever information you want to give.
Yeah. Well, before talking about myself, I want to say in closing, I think, be excited to be alive right now, because we are alive at a really dynamic time. The turning of the ages means that whatever we do right now, whatever you create right now, that sets the stage for what the energy on the planet is going to be like for the next 2,000 years. The age of Aquarius, like almost all the other astrological ages, is 2,150 years, and we're at the very beginning of it. We have to build a bridge, though, from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius.
Can you say something to calm down all the fear right now, please?
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, and it's kind of annoying.
It's very annoying.
Step out of your fear, people.
I know. I get so tired of having conversations with people who are in fear, but I also hold compassion, because I understand.
I do too. So give them something to think about, please.
It's all time-coded, and it's all happening by design. Everything from the age of Pisces has to be torn down. All of the institutions, all of the structures, all of the things that maybe there weren't anything bad about.
They're pendulums.
They're just pendulums.
They're pendulums. Right. Everything's a pendulum.
I miss a lot of the things that have gone away. But you know what? New things are coming. Get excited about the new things. For everybody who is afraid about all the old stuff that's getting torn away and all the old things that are being broken down.
And the government. Get over
and the politics. Well, first of all, our politics today that it's not going to be the same in even 20 years.
Of course
The
not.
whole thing is getting torn down, and that's by design. So just get excited about that
Exactly.
and trust that you're going to be okay, that you're going to be taken care of. We have this saying in Kundalini Yoga, keep up and you'll be kept up. So just keep up with your life.
And if you can't do it, stop watching the goddamn news.
Turn off the news. Honestly, I used to be an MSNBC junkie. I have very different politics today. I turned off the news and started watching astrology and started watching, esoteric cosmology,
Right.
started watching Rama TV and
Go to
Tej
Gaia
TV.
TV.
Gaia TV. And I'm a lot happier. I still know what's going on. Don't get me wrong.
Well,
you
you
can't
stay
numb
informed,
out.
of course.
You can read, stay informed. Don't be an idiot. But you don't need to watch 5 commentators comment on the exact same event that has nothing to do with you.
You free yourself of fear mongering. Even the yogic teachings, or Voltaire, mind your own garden.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. You don't have to look and be a part of all the grief in the world.
You don't. You don't.
That's not why we're here.
No, you can observe what's going on. You can see the suffering, but don't attach yourself to it. And understand that you came here to alleviate the suffering. You're the light. If you're watching this podcast, you are the light. And if you just somehow stumbled onto this and you're like, who is this weird guy? You're still the light. You just don't know it yet.
Right, exactly. You popped in for a moment for a reason.
Yeah, and that's because you're the light. There's this teaching in that Yogi Bhajan said that at this time, 1/3 of humanity will go mad, 1/3 will die, and 1/3 will wake up and be the light. And I see this in my own life. I see people going mad. I see people dying. Well, we're the light.
Me too.
And you're the light.
And I don't feel connected. I feel like I'm on a different plane. I'm in a different trajectory, a different timeline.
It is a different timeline. And there is the Earth split. Dolores Cannon talked about this. We're in a time where the Earth is going to split and there's going to be a new Earth. And the two will coexist for a period of time. We're still in that. But very soon, these...
You can transition your timelines,
you can. You absolutely can.
So that people be very focused on that.
I've done that.
Keep those thoughts elevated.
I've done that this year.
So have I.
The white tantric. I mean, if you really want to power your way through a timeline, do white tantric yoga. It's a form of Kundalini yoga. You can Google it online. You can message me. I'll tell you all about it. But I was on a timeline of being alone and single for the rest of my life, and guess what? That isn't happening anymore because I've done white tantric yoga.
I love that. You're gonna give me some tips when we're off the air.
I will.
So how do people reach you, honey?
My spiritual name is tegakaldeep, and they can find me on Instagram under that handle. It's TEGAKALDEEP. So I'm tegakaldeep on Instagram. I'm tegakaldeep on TikTok. I also have a YouTube channel called The Aquarian Shift. It's youtube.com/tegakaldeep. And then my email address, and you're welcome to email me if you have questions, if you want meditations, just ask me questions.
Or even to have your chart read.
Yeah, if you have your chart read, I do readings. I'd love to do readings with listeners on here. You can email me tegakaldeep@gmail.com, tegakaldeep@gmail.com. You can also DM me on TikTok or Instagram as well.
He's accessible.
Yeah, I'm
He's
accessible.
making it clear that he wants to be accessible
Yeah.
for you. So take advantage of it. I'm going to now because I'm going to make an appointment I'm going to make a booking for Ren.
Thank you.
Anyway, darling, I am so happy to have this conversation. It was so exciting. I learned so much because I really entered this conversation knowing absolutely nothing. So I love when I can leave one of these podcasts and feel smarter and brighter and more enlightened.
Thank you. That's the whole point of life, is to constantly be growing and evolving and learning new things. And I feel like I do the same when I listen to your podcast and I listen to the guests that you have. I'm always learning.
Thank you, honey. Satnam.
Satnam.